Authors, editors, publishers, book cover designers, agents, critics, readers. I am your host, Koral Dasgupta, all set to ask some interesting, straightforward, and fun questions to our guests. Today I am sitting with Himanjali Shankar. Himanjali is an author and also the editorial director of Simon Schuster. Welcome to the show, Himanjali.
Hi, Koral. I'm happy to be on your show.
Thank you so much. So, Himanjali, you have made great contributions in children's literature. What are you trying to tell the young ones?
I'm not sure if I have a message that I'm trying to send out to children. It's more, I write for the joy of writing, and so I hope to sort of, communicate that pleasure that I derive from the writing to children. I hope they enjoy what they read. Hope it sort of, gives them new ideas, new thoughts, shakes them up a little in terms of just having, exercising exercising the imagination. So, it's not like I'm trying to tell them something, but obviously I think when anyone is writing what I believe in as a person or who I am, that does come through. I mean, I'm sure that's the case with anything that anyone writes. So I suppose in that way, not a conscious messaging, but there are things that I am saying, and there are possibly things which I believe in.
Superb. So, Himanjali, you are an author and as well as you are the editorial director with Simon Schuster. How do you juggle the two hats? And I also wonder that do you ever feel any kind of conflict anywhere?
I've been an editor for very long, and I started writing later. So I honestly have not felt any conflict as such, because they are in some ways, in fact, I find they are while
complementary.
They are complementary, and it's sort of nicely feed into each other, because I'm sure in India, especially, all authors usually do have a day job as well, because we don't make that much money from writing. So to me, it's like it's the same as that. It's being an editor is not different from having another job. It's just that it's true that the two jobs are very much allied. I can't deny that. But possibly, I think as a writer, I benefit from that more than as an editor. I mean,
because I am an author, and my understanding of this was just the ulta, because when I look at myself as an author, I just feel that I would probably be a disaster without my editor. So when I write, I always know that, there is one person who will read before the rest of the world reads. And so I'm in safe zone.
I agree with that. I definitely benefit from my editor. What I meant was, as an editor, do I benefit from being an author also? That I'm not very sure, but I do take editorial feedback very seriously. And when I'm an author, then my editor is obviously not me. It's another person. It's a publisher who I'm publishing with. So yes, I mean, the people I've published with, I really do rely on them heavily for their feedback on my writing. So that's there.
And given that you are an editorial director, which is a very senior position, does that make you finicky about your own writing? I mean, more critical about whatever you are producing?
The thing is, since I've been with Simon & Schuster for close to 2 years, and really in the last 2 years, I have not written. It's not like I haven't written anything in the last 2 years. So I'm not sure about that, but it's just that, so maybe my job is taking up more of my mind space and time. So and creativity. And as of now, I haven't got back to writing.
Okay. So since you are an author as well, do you think you understand the authors better when you are on the editor's table? The reason I ask this is because authors have their own pains and they expect certain things from their editors. So do you feel that you, being in both spaces, it is making things easier for you to understand them and give them what they desire?
I'm sure it's helping, but the fact is I've been an editor for much longer than I've been an author. So I do feel as an editor, I was always responsive to authors and literature. I kind of hope in the same way. Maybe since I've started, I don't know how much difference my becoming an author has made to the way I edit. But I like to think that I was already I do understand where an author is coming from, and then what it feels like to be an author. Maybe I think a lot of editors do, because a lot of editors do. I mean, they obviously, editors are people who are very closely connected to literature and writing and books. So, and they have an affinity with authors before anything else. So yeah, I think all editors should be having that. I mean, that ability to understand authors. And maybe it helps a little, but I haven't really thought about that. Yeah,
I understand. So you have spent a lot of time in Kolkata, and you have authored this book called Mrs. C Remembers. What aspect of Kolkata inspires you the most?
No, Kolkata
what are the memories?
Yeah, Kolkata is where I've grown up. So it's obviously all my formative years were spent in Kolkata. So it's a city that, well, I'm sure it inspires me. It's a city I know the best in terms of I also, because after so many years of being away from Kolkata, there's nostalgia. So I don't see, like, say my family is always complaining about what's wrong with Kolkata, but I don't see that anymore. It's I love the mess. I love the bustle. I love the language. I love the way the city functions, because I think being away also helps to preserve that connection as such. So, I think Kolkata will always inspire me. It's really very much a part of who I am. I mean, it's very important to me. And somehow in between, I think I lost that connect because I was very busy trying to set up my life elsewhere. But in the last few years, I find myself again going back to Kolkata. It's not like I actively miss the city anymore, but it's just, that it's there to sort of.
When I was reading Mrs. C Remembers, I don't know whether that is your first book on Kolkata or you have written something before.
It's actually my only book on, which is based in Kolkata.
Which has Kolkata. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was reading it, I just felt that probably when you were growing up, you were growing up with the city, and a lot of things about the city that you have that probably has touched you as a person is a lot about your adolescence.
Oh, that's interesting, because I actually thought that I made the city, I thought it was very much in the background, but you're probably right. It is very much about my adolescence and my growing up years. So I see it as a personal journey. I didn't kind of see it as how much the city impinges upon that journey, but it's interesting to know that it does. And I'm sure it does. I'm sure you're right in saying that. Yeah.
So your books, be it The Lies We Tell, or Talking of Muskan, or Mrs. C Remembers, I mean, all of them have extraordinarily beautiful covers. I mean, tell us about reaching those covers and the interaction that you may have had with the designers.
Yeah. Well, actually, again, these are books that I'm not the publisher. So publishers and editors are more directly involved with the cover than the writers. So in these cases, I would say it's my editors and publishers who have been involved in developing those covers. Like I do remember, like, Lies We Tell is done by Priya Kurian, who is always very good. And the Talking of Muskan was actually a lot of fun, because we Duckbill had outsourced that cover, but it just somehow wasn't working out. And finally, that photograph was taken by them in office. It's just taken in my publisher's garden, and it's one of the editors and who's standing with her and wearing these mismatched socks. So it was a cover which was done by them in-house. When it wasn't working out, somehow we weren't getting the right cover. So it was decided that why not just give it a shot, and it just worked out very well. So it was done by Duckbill with their resources.
Under pressure and in-house.
Yeah, exactly. And and Mrs. C Remembers, again, Prabha Malia, who's also very good. Mrs. C Remembers, actually, when I first saw the cover, somehow strangely, I just didn't take to it. And I remember my editor, she was a bit disappointed, and she was like, she said, I thought you would love it. But I somehow didn't. I don't know why. It was also because the woman on the cover reminded me of my mother too much. And that's what it kind of disturbed me a little. But then I realized, when I showed it to a few people, and people thought it was a very striking cover. So I thought, yes, let's go with it. And it is a striking cover, yeah.
Oh, yes, it is. Under Book Launch, we have been talking to a few book cover designers who are both Indian and who comes from abroad, who does it in European countries. And something that they often say is how how the image that is already there in the author's mind at times come in between a good cover.
That's true.
Or it doesn't, or it influences a lot.
That's very true, possibly, which is why I try to keep myself away from the way the cover is being developed by the publisher, because I know because again, since as you know, I'm wearing both hats, so I do have sometimes it's so difficult to convince an author that this cover is so good, and they don't, obviously possibly for them it's the same thing is happening where they are not able, this is not what they envisaged, and so I do have in my mind there are some covers which I would love to have, and maybe when that's not happening for my books, I feel like Mrs. C remembers, like what I said, that somehow I just didn't know what I wanted, but it confused me because I don't know what, again, I don't really know what I wanted, but I know that's not what I wanted. And it was kind of confusing for me as a writer. But as a publisher, I'm actually much more sure. And working with a designer as a publisher is an easier process because I know the book and I know where I'm giving clear directions to the designer as to what I think would be good for the book.
Practically, as an editor, you are not as much emotionally messed about it.
Exactly, so I can think more rationally or rather more critically and without, the emotion coming in.
Himanjali, this answer leads me to ask you a more leadership question than a publishing or authoring question. Yeah. That is, what you just said is about letting go of something when you don't have complete knowledge about it.
Yeah.
And trusting the people who do.
Yeah.
In your life as a professional, as a person, how much do you endorse this, and when do you think that too much of intervention spoils things?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. As a leader, I'm not a very confident leader. I am aware that like what you're saying, I'm working with designers, I'm working with typesetters, I'm working with writers, everyone, with a sales team, and my knowledge in each of these spheres is not complete because I'm one person and there are people who are specializing or experts in those fields. So my mind is very open to what the other person is saying. And I completely get where someone is coming from. And I think I try to take all different opinions, views I give them equal respect is what I would like to think. And
Super. So, I was just going through your profile and I see that you have done a lot of work with the Center for Women Development Studies. Now, this is something very interesting for me as well. And I would like to know, and not just me, but also our audience would like to know that what is your learning when it comes to the representation of women in more intellectually aligned work?
Well, I worked for the Center for Women Development Studies very long back when it was just after I finished my MPhil. And I was working on their journal, Indian Journal for Gender Studies. I don't know if they still have it. I was working as a very young editor with them. And it was just, and I just finished my MPhil, which was also on gender and literature. Well, it wasn't, it was literature. I have an MPhil in literature, but it was on women outside the domestic space, or on representation of women. So I think when it comes to any work of whatever art or like intellectual inspired, any literature work of any work in these spheres, I am very aware, very conscious of how women are being represented. And it's very different when you're analyzing it as a student from, of course, being a reader of a piece of work, which we've always read. Which we've always done. One is reading from the time one is a child. So while it's important, of course, I think it's very important that representations are nuanced or they have diversity and all of that. But I also respect where the other person is coming from in their representations, so long as it doesn't offend me in any way. And if it does offend me, I think I need to understand why it's offending me and work on that. But yes, I do come with my biases. I do feel that certain, like a very stereotyped or flat representation of women, I'm not happy with that. I'm not happy when I come across it in any piece of work that I'm reading. I'm not saying every book that's written should show strong women or should represent women in certain ways. But it's also important when there is a book which does have an important woman character should have a certain nuance in that representation. I mean, that, yeah. So, yeah, it's a bit problematic because I'm one person. So my views and opinions are not representative of everyone's. So there is a need to obviously have diversity when it comes. But I think, no, I just stick to what I said, which is like to avoid something that's offensive or something that I know, like if it really makes me, for whatever reason, it strikes me as wrong. Even if some other people might think it's right, I would exert my position of maybe whatever privilege I have to not allow that. And maybe I'm not the best person for a book which shows or which represents women in a certain way.
True. So, why don't you tell us some of the challenges that a publisher or editor faces, which an author or rest of the world has no clue about? That is something we would love to know, because as an author, me or even my fellows, I'm sure, we all discuss about the things that hurt us, the emotions that we have, but we haven't ever got the opportunity to ask an editor or a publisher that what are your pains? I would love to hear that from you.
Yeah, there are many factors that weigh in when we are taking a call to publish a certain book. And it's not just about the content or how good a writer you are. We have sales teams, we have marketing teams, we have weekly meetings where we are presenting the books which we would like to publish. And if a book is shot down by a salesperson, we now have also there's a database. Say if you've already written a book, then we have the Nielsen figures. We can see how much your earlier book sold. So based on that, if it didn't sell much, then our sales team will say, even if you love this book, why do you want to, why would we publish an author who we know doesn't have good sales figures from the past? So that's one thing which we face quite often, because also, again, the editor and the reader are also very different. As an editor, my tastes are, in fact, it could often be very niche. It could be the books which I read. And as one goes along, you realize that more and more that, I'm looking at the P&L sheets also now, like the profit and loss and all of that. So really some of my favorite authors it shocks me to see how little they've sold. And then as a publisher, I can't justify publishing, at least I do need to show profits. So it becomes a bit of a cycle of trying to also find books which I necessarily might not identify with that much, but I know this is the genre which is selling. Anyway, fiction is really a very shrinking small market now. So one is looking out for non-fiction constantly, trying to see like memoirs, biographies, genres which are doing well. So all these things impinge on us when we are selecting a manuscript. It's not just our personal immediate connect with what we are reading.
One question that, I am in touch with a lot of authors for my professional interests and exposure. And I do know some of the questions that the authors would often have for the editor, but they'll never ask you directly, obviously.
Yeah.
But the question that they would often come out with is that can't the publishing house and the author together make things happen? Can't there be a publishing, the marketing push why are a lot of things left to the author to be able to,
The thing is, I also feel like the publishing industry itself, it's a small industry. It's not like, people, while we even say Simon & Schuster we do have in UK and US, we might be very big, but in India, we are a small office. So, and the fact is the publishing industry is a hard industry. It really is not an industry which is flushed with money, which has too much. Our marketing budgets are constrained. So one can try to come up with innovative ways of marketing, and we are happy to brainstorm with authors. But there are like practical constraints, and sometimes, all of us have like our personal biases and what we think might work, but it's very often shot down when I will discuss it in office with the full team. They're like, no, this it just doesn't work. So we have to take that back to the author, but we have to take it back in a way that the author doesn't feel like we're just completely disregarding what they said. But so negotiating that, because it's also not like, it's not like we are selling a product, but the product is a book which is written by a person. It's not like toothpaste, which is, I mean, it's not something where human emotions are not coming in. So that's, I think, with this product, what the problem, not the problem, but the challenge is that it has a human face to it. And so there are emotions, which one has to take into consideration. And the idea is to make changes to, like, there are things which suddenly work, a genre comes in which suddenly becomes popular. But again, we don't know at which point that's going to come. So one can experiment, but sometimes we feel very sure that while an author might feel this is a great idea, we might not really agree with that.
You have to take calculated risk. Right. So, Himanjali, you have been in some way or the other related with the publishing industry for a very long time. And I'm sure that you have met many people who are worth knowing, and they have left beautiful memories in your life. So if you could tell us at least about one of those inspiring persons that you have met with and got enriched by during your stint with Simon Schuster or beyond.
Okay. Oh, I am I'm wondering whether I should name a person. Is that all right to do? But in Simon & Schuster, it's been close to 2 years. But it's true that the authors that I've worked with have been really interesting. I mean, I've had a lovely time with many of the authors who are on our list, because they've, I can think of people like, say, Priyanka Dubey, who wrote No Nation for Women. It's been great knowing her because she's a young person. She comes from a small town, and she really brings that experience very well into what she writes, and her empathy, the way she looks at life. I think that's been very enriching. But I don't really want to name one person. There's been, like, every author has actually brought something. Like then there's Geeta Hariharan, who, I mean, Geeta won't mind me saying, even if she were to hear this, which she's difficult, as in she really knows exactly what she wants, and she has been around, and she is an established author who, I mean, it's been great working with her, because I feel like it was great learning for me also, just the meticulousness, the rigor she brought into the editing process and her expectations, but she knew exactly what she wanted, and she knew exactly what I could give. So it's, so that, I mean, working with her was also a very different but very interesting experience. So every author has they have, I feel like I do learn something from many of my authors. Yeah.
Okay. So that is what we wanted to talk to you about, Himanjali. Thanks a lot for joining us